Hello and welcome to Tana's first podcast. My name is Sue Hart, current president of Tana, and I'm here today with my two co-founders and dear friends, Brigid Daly and Mike Lizotte. Welcome.
Thanks, Sue. Good to be here.
Yeah, great.
So we're really here today to introduce you to Tana. We just want to let you know why we exist, a bit about our backstory, some highlights of our journey so far, what we've learned along the way, and importantly, what we really want to achieve and how you can be a part of this movement. So Tana is a grassroots health promotion charity co-founded in 2018, 2019. We first came together to see if we could come up with a solution or really understand this complex problem that we were experiencing working in schools in different capacities. It got to the point for me personally where I could see that it wasn't just about the education system, although we know that that needs improving. It wasn't just about teaching strategies and what I could do better as a teacher. It was seeing something deeper in young people that was more in line with what we now call the mental health epidemic. And we thought, well, what's really going on beneath the surface? What's troubling these young people? There's just so many, an increasing number of them that seem to be distressed and unable to engage with their learning. And so I got Brigid and Mike together and I introduced them. And for 10 years, I'd known each of them for about 10 years. And when we first got together and sat down, you know, what is the problem? What is it beneath the surface? And Brigid was reading Bessel van der Kolk's book at the time, The Body Keeps the Score. And she said, it's complex trauma. So I thought I might just hand over to Brigid and ask you to tell us from your perspective about that moment when you really, the penny dropped and you really understood the core of the problem.
Thank you for that, Sue. As Sue said, I was always on a journey of trying to get to the root cause of what was troubling my students as a person, troubling me, and what was preventing us from reaching our full potential. I started reading books on trauma when I was working with students with particular difficulties. And when I found Bessel's book, it was a real aha moment for me that common situations can have a very adverse impact on people. And to have that realization that this can be a diagnosable condition, can be treated, it can be healed with the right treatment, and we can explain this and we can define it. And there's a root cause. That was really for me the aha moment that this is something that makes sense. It's not a person's weakness or a person's fault. It's a very natural, adaptive response to experiences and situations that they find themselves in, that we find ourselves in. And once I had that realization, I thought, why is this not widely known? Because this gives us such an explanation of what's happening and why people are responding the way they are. And I think if more people understand the science of the causes and the treatments and the rehabilitation, the ability to move on from this in our lives, that would be a really positive thing for all of us to know and understand. So that's really where I'm coming from with Tana. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, beautiful. I remember the first time that Mike came along. We'd met a couple of times to discuss this, but the day that Mike arrived was the day that you had this aha moment with Bessel's book in your hand. And Mike came up the steps, the front steps. We were sitting on the veranda and you said it to Mike, and that was it. I just watched Mike's response and I felt like I just kind of sat back and watched you two have the aha moment together. Tell us about your experience of that moment, Mike.
Look, I will never forget that moment, actually. For me, it was like a piece of a puzzle that was missing because of the youth work I've been doing for many years before that, and all the different experiences I had working with difficult boys and girls in the areas that I've been working. I was just so perplexed as, what's going on here. And then it seemed to be more and more emotionally dysregulated children in the areas that I was working. But like I said, the pieces of the puzzle started to fit. It was also at the same time that I had seen the TED Talk, Nadine Burke-Harris. If the listeners don't know about Nadine Burke-Harris, I would highly recommend seeing the TED Talk, Nadine Burke-Harris. It's titled Childhood Trauma. From the moment I saw that, understanding what ACEs is about, and Sue and Brigid will go on and explain a little bit more about ACEs, but it's adverse childhood experiences. That coupled with learning about Bessel's work, as I said, it made sense, and I just immediately wanted to be part of telling people and being part of the solution. Thanks, Sue.
Absolutely. I've always said Mike Lizotte has a heart as big as Tasmania. He just wants to see a difference happening here, and that's why we came together. For me, it was bringing in a lot of work and understanding the value of personal development, and particularly self-awareness. And so trauma awareness is where the name came. Brigid arrived one day and said, it's got to be grassroots. The only way anything ever changes is the grassroots. So Tana came as a grassroots movement, and it has to be a network, and it has to be about awareness. And so Trauma Awareness Network. And we realised that if it's the root cause, then it underpins everything. There's been an institutionalised education system for a long time. There's no secret that it's difficult for teachers and students to navigate their way into a new way of being and doing in that field. And we now have police we've spoken to police who struggle with how do we change the system there as well. And the other big one, of course, is health. So while on one hand we talk about and we seek to advocate for policies in those three main areas of human services, we really are interested in this being for everybody. So when we talk about a grassroots health promotion charity, which is what we are, we're a grassroots health promotion charity for raising awareness about complex trauma. We had a wonderful advocate, Mike Gaffney, who's a member of the Legislative Council in Tasmania, who got it straight away and said, I want to sponsor this. I want you to, if you want to do a community forum, I want to sponsor it. So our January 2019 community forum was a real highlight for me. The two Mikes, Mike Gaffney and Mike Lizotte, brought us an audience that was really diverse. And we had a wonderful 200 people from around Tasmania come to indicate to us clearly by their presence that this was a much needed conversation. And that was the beginning of everything for Tana, is that we brought the conversation into the public domain. And a lot of great work has been happening since then and continues to happen in trauma awareness around Tasmania, which has been our focus area. Highlights of the journey for you, Brigid?
It's been amazing to meet so many people that really understand the importance of this work, and to share with them the information that we have, to share with them Bessel's book, to share with them the links, the TED Talks, the podcasts. To be able to meet so many great people is a definite highlight. Our members are so dedicated and supportive. We have a screening coming up of Gabor Mate's latest movie that's been watched by millions of people around the world. So that's a highlight as well. The events that are happening, the network building. It's just really exciting to see it happen from an idea to come into reality, and to have so many people on board, really seeing the merits of this idea and the importance of this information to be widely known. So that's the highlight for me, is to see it happening. Thanks, Sue.
Yeah, absolutely. We have, from the beginning, there's been a core group of people that have really said, yes, absolutely, I hear you, I see you, I know what this is about, and I want to do whatever I can to make it happen. So that's been an absolute power, that there's this sort of power pack core that have really held things together and keep it moving. Mike, what about you? Highlights of Tana's journey so far?
The biggest highlight was I was, after getting very much encouraged by both of you to understand this more, I was encouraged by the Australian Childhood Foundation to go to a 6-day conference in Melbourne. And that there I met Bessel, and I heard some beautiful speakers from all the major world leaders in psychology were there. 2,600 people were there. Most of them were psychologists, and I was very humbled to be able to be a part of that and get all that information. But I guess from that, I say these three things over and over again when I tell people of that time, that when Bessel finished speaking in front of all the 2,600 people, and he was ending the 6-day conference, he said, there's three things that really resonated with him now in his life. And one of them was that relationships. And he said, relationships. That's what helps, that's what heals. This is what begins the journey for so many people. So I took that away. And he's also said that drugs don't work, although he underlined that, and I'm paraphrasing, of course, but he underlined that, of course, drugs have their place. But he, again, underlined the relationships. And the last thing he said to 2,600 people is wagging the finger. We need to stop wagging the finger. So that to me is like just gold, because I knew personally the journeys that I've had with working with youth, that I knew my relationships were the things that kept it strong and created change in these children's lives, the relationships that were there. And I just didn't know why. And now that I understand more of the neuroscience, of course, that's what makes it all, the penny drops even more, as Brigid and you are pointing out regularly to me. And I guess the other highlight was, of course, I was led, I don't know how, but divinely, to go to Tennessee and explore how trauma-informed communities worked in Tennessee. And there I met Becky Haas and Dr. Andy Clements. And well, it just, something that, I will always treasure, of course, but I take that now, and of course you'll go on and explain to our audience that we're working with them now, and it's bearing fruit. And I can't say it enough. That was certainly a highlight of the journey for Tana so far. And of course, the many little Tana talks that Brigid and I have had, Sue, that you weren't able to because you were so busy working in the trenches. Brigid and I were able to go to quite a few Tana talks and give our Tana talks, and I'm doing some more now. And every time I do a Tana talk, it's so humbling and so nice to see that the penny drop, and people immediately, it's 80-90% of everyone listens to us. And you don't get everyone, because it depends on where they're at in their lives, but they immediately say, I want to know more. How can I help? And that to me is gold. And yeah, over to you, Sue.
Yeah, I don't think there's been a single person that I've come across in conversation that doesn't get it and doesn't see that it's everywhere. It's everybody's experience. And that's something that struck me when we first learned about the ACEs study, is really understanding the widespread prevalence of adverse childhood experiences. And it kind of just makes logical sense that what we experience early in life is going to have its impact. We now understand a lot more about how to build resilience, and you touched on that, Mike. So one of the things that we've learned is it is complex, absolutely. Healing takes time, and it is an individual journey, but it's absolutely critical that it happens in a supportive environment. That's a really critical part of what I really is my biggest aha about what I've learned, is not to focus on trauma, but we have to understand it because it's in the way. It's in the way of how we build a happy, thriving, contributing community. And the more we understand collectively the adverse experiences and their effects on the individual, the more compassionate we become and the kinder we can become, and the more we can hear and see each other truly and ourselves. And so we've always said it starts with a self-awareness journey. So when we learn about this, we can't help but reflect on our own childhoods and start asking those deep personal questions about, maybe that's the way I was, or forgiving our parents and ancestors. We don't blame anybody for this. It's just part of the human condition. So that's why we're at work. That's why we're grassroots. That's why we want everybody to understand this, because we know that is what is going to build and lead towards a shift. We can naturally become more compassionate.
Yeah.
So
may I add something to that, Sue? When you use the word support, it is a community that gets a trauma-informed community when it understands. We now know, an hour visit to a psychologist or a therapist is good. But if you don't have a support system, they know that now. Brigid, you can expand on this, but we need to realize that it's the community that responds to it through trauma-informed lenses that makes the difference, so that we don't re-traumatize each other when we leave the therapist or the psychologist or the school classroom and go home. We know that's the beauty of how this will work in the end, that we'll all respond better to each other. You might want to say something, Brigid, I'm not sure.
I think that Dr. Robert Anda explains it really beautifully in his infograph of the cogs and the gears, and how at the front there's 4 smaller cogs with police, education, health, social services, and they're trying to move. But behind that is a really large cog, and that's the community and community awareness. And it's only when we can start moving that really large cog behind it, then the smaller wheels in front, the smaller cogs in front, can move effortlessly. However, if the large community awareness is not moving, the ones in front are merely wearing down their teeth. You know, they're getting worn out, they're getting burnt out, the staff are becoming just exhausted. And unfortunately, we have vicarious trauma happening. And this has been shown that we need that community awareness. We need that whole grassroots understanding to support the work of everyone else, to support the work of the teachers, of the nurses, of the psychologist and the psychiatrist, of the social workers and the counselors, of everybody who is there to support. But as you say, Mike, it just has to be general knowledge, just like we now all wear seatbelts, just like we all now know not to smoke, especially not around children. You know, when smoking first came out, doctors were recommending it for people with asthma.
Yeah. Wow.
Public education. We do now know the science of human thriving. We now know what works using evidence-backed programs.
Yeah.
But all of this is foundational on the community understanding it at a grassroots level. Yeah.
Absolutely. We're still learning every single day. We're always learning more and sharing more. And one of Brigid's most recent sharings with me comes from Dr. Anthony Bigland's work. He calls it the nurture consilience is the scientific that they're using, and that all the different branches of human sciences have come to the same conclusion, that it's nurturing that is required for human thriving. Segueing into that, Brigid, if you could go on with what you see as Tana's objective, what do we really want to achieve?
Yeah, well, when awareness of complex trauma, its causes, its effects, and how we can mitigate those effects, and ultimately how we can prevent complex trauma from happening at such a rate that it now happens right around the world. When that is common knowledge, and it can be spoken of effortlessly, when everyone can say, yes, this is obvious, you know, this is so obvious that this is how we have to interact with each other to prevent this damage from happening. Now, when that has become common knowledge, Tana's specific work has been done.
That's right.
Yeah.
Or any other group that's doing the same.
Yeah, exactly. But it has to be widespread, and it has to be understood. And there's no shame, no blame. Intergenerational transmission of trauma is a tragic happening that no one is to blame for. But we do need to be aware of that, to be aware of changing our responses, so that we can stop, we can pause, we can say, I understand the situation here, and I understand what I need to do to respond in a constructive, helpful way. Or I understand what I need to do in order to be able to respond in a constructive way, because right now I'm not able to respond in the best possible way. And I'm not ashamed to say that I need someone to help me to do better.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Mike, you know, people are listening to this and saying, oh my God, this makes so much sense. What can I do? You know, what can I do to help move this along?
Okay, that I can easily answer that. We now know that we need to do this with people with lived experiences. They know that it's evidence-based too, and it has to be done in local regions. You don't have to go far and wide to develop systems or create events that they can do local events that mean something in a local area. Yesterday, I was able to go to Wynyard and see how it worked with Scott Rankin's Big Heart. He organized a thing called Skate of Mind. And for me, that was another beautiful example of collaboration with some of the health agencies came together and pooled their ideas and came together with ways that they could engage with the youth and with the parents that brought their children there. And throughout the day, I was able to see that was quite an effective way of transferring information. Couldn't fault it with using music, using skateboards, using food, of course, all these things that people love to go out to experience. So that would couple with some exercises. They did some beautiful little speed dating thing that get to know people to learn how to engage with one another and ask each other questions. Again, so the answer to your question, I see Tana encouraging, being a part of, collaborating, and working together alongside all kinds of communities, starting little groups in Tana groups in all regional areas, and they're coming up with their own ideas to engage, disseminate this information that we now know is so important to disseminate. And so, yeah, just more of the same. As you alluded to before, one of our beautiful members, our committee members, Margaret Howard, she's going to go ahead and organize the Wisdom of Trauma movie with Gabor Mate. It's going to be a great way to engage the public, and I'm sure with a couple of psychologists will be there in the evening. That will be an amazing way to start the conversation. I guess that's the thing too. It's always learning ways to start that conversation, to be bold and to say, hey, we can do it better, in a respectful, loving way too. This is the big part too, the love and intervention that I always saw Tana being a part of, where we're able to disseminate this information in a respectful way. Because as Brigid, you remind us constantly, wherever we're at, everyone is coping the best they can, and quite often we don't think that, but we realize now, understanding the science, that these people are doing very well. And I know I get caught out sometimes, and I think, well, I'm doing okay too. And again, it's the self-awareness and such. But yeah, it's the events and the engagement that's the clear winner in all this. Thanks, Sue.
Just to articulate, Tana's core objectives first and foremost is raising awareness, and so we do that through events like film events, Mike's music events, to bring people together as a way of sharing the information. We're about education, so if people want to know more, we can provide links and access to that information from our sources. Really about promoting that conversation and primarily advocating as a collective voice for policies that are trauma-informed, because it is that our representatives are here to support us. And so we've got a responsibility to give that voice of the people to our politicians. And so we have on our website, www.tana.net.au, click on the button and become a supporter if you want to be part of a collective voice for change. We are working with our government as well as the grassroots, and the idea of top down, bottom up is really where the answer lies. We use phrases like know us, know them. This is not about poor, disadvantaged people, although it is. It's also about you and me and many of the people that we know. It's about our politicians and our teachers and our lawyers and our police. Everybody experiences some degree of difficulty in their childhood that can leave an imprint that is kind of a fragmented part of self. And so this is really widespread. This is not something to be ashamed of. This is, just like Brigid said, the way that we adapt to our circumstances. And we want as many people as possible to say, yep, I get this, I support it, it's important work, and just sign up. Your name creates part of our voice, and we can get this job done. We can create the cultural shift. We can understand what's required to live in the society and create the society that we all want to live in. Brigid, I'd love to hear from you to finish, because all of the elements of this main idea have really come through Brigid. I think that needs to be said. We've all worked really, really tightly together. I sometimes see us like three threads of a rope, that's just become stronger. We used to talk about it's three legs of a stool. Brigid really brought the big vision of what really needed to happen to create this network. So, Brigid.
Oh, thank you, Sue. I think that it's not just me. I think the three of us together brought it into form. So thank you for your kind comments, but really it could not have happened without the three of us. I think that we're a marriage of science and wisdom, perhaps, if I dare say that. I love that science now backs up what we all intuitively feel. Yeah. And I think that science now knows what works. We have interventions that have been proven to work. Prevention has to step up and be funded.
Yes.
We need to stop being so reactive and start being proactive. Yeah. So let's start advocating for these policies that we all want. Let's start backing them with funds and resources. And let's start really putting pressure, if that pressure needs to be put, on backing these programs and policies that support children, that support families, that support communities, and that support us all to contribute back to our society. Ultimately, we want to see everybody being able to contribute and to reciprocate and to really give back in the best possible way. So we're all on a journey together, and let's all put our face in the same direction and say, let's back what works to achieve this goal. Thank you.
I love that. The work's being done to understand what works, and we all want the same thing. We all want to live good lives. We all want to have fun.
Sorry, so may I add? I'd just like to add the fact that I'm starting to feel very enthusiastic about the climate out in our community. Because I've spoken and continue to speak with so many different agencies, from Anglicare to Baptist to Presbyterian Care to City Mission to Mission Australia, and the list goes on. Wise Youth and Family Connection and such. Everyone realizes now the direction as you say, Brigid, we need to head all in the same direction. They are doing that, And I really truly believe that what we've done here, and that's, we want our audience and our community to understand what Tana is about. We are the missing piece. We will help the community engage with them. I believe that we will encourage we want all our supporters to look to the people that they're looking at and look at them and say, hey, did you know that there's such and such an agency out there that can help you in this area? And in the meantime, how can I help? This is the thing, the attitude we have to have is that we're all doing it together. And Tana is the missing piece of the puzzle, I think. And I'll end on that thought anyway. The other thing too, I did want to mention that that the future of Tana will be people like Bessel on a video, and so we can listen to these people who've got so much anecdotal evidence, and it will encourage them to the max. Gabo Mate, the Dan Siegels, and so forth and so on. Am I correct in saying that, you two?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Watch out.
Watch this space, huh?
Watch this space. Yeah. Thank you both. It is an ongoing pleasure. Is a mild version of it. It's these guys are my soul family, and there's no question about that. We've got some wonderful work to continue doing together, and it's an absolute honor and a privilege. Thank you.
Thank you.
Till next time.
See you next time. And thanks for watching.